Greetings ladies and gentlemen, I'm Narsgel and I welcome you to this HoI4 modding tutorial for total beginners. This is video number 2 where we will take a look on commands, conditions, scopes and mainly focuses and focus trees. I will also mention modifiers here, but they will be more explained in the next video where we will take a look on ideas or national spirits. I will also show you how to use HoI4 modding wiki and how to copy from it and how to copy from vanilla files. Because as I said in the previous video, modding is 90% just copy and pasting. So what are the commands or effects, conditions or triggers and scopes? Well, let's start with effects. Effects or commands, I will probably use commands because I am more used to it. Commands are something you will get like one time and immediately after you complete, for example, the focus. The most basic command is, for example, to add political power, as you can see here. So if you put this into your focus tree, you will get 100 political power. I will now jump onto the modifiers. Modifiers are something you will get over time and it's used in national spirits. So if we take a look on political power again and find it right here. If you add this command, political power gain, into your national spirit, you will gain 0.3 political power every day. So commands, you get it one time. Modifiers, you get it over time. There is also a difference where you can put effects and where you can put modifiers. As I said, commands, you put it into your focuses or events or effects of the decisions, and modifiers, you put them into national spirits or traits. It will make more sense when we take a look on the individual focus modding. Now, the conditions or triggers. Conditions are something that must be satisfied in order to something be available. You put this into, again, your focuses or decisions, and like most use is, for example, has war, for example, has war support. If you put this under your available, again, will make more sense when you take a look on the focus tree modding. You will be able to complete that focus only if you have more than 0.5 or 50% war support. And lastly, scopes. Scopes tell you for whom that effect will apply. For instance, here you can see we have tag of British Kingdom. So if you put this, which the tag is the scope, before your command, that 100 political power will be gained by British Kingdom. You can also see that we have multiple types of scopes. We have trigger, effects or dual scopes, but that's a bit more advanced, so let's skip that for now. So that was just a start, so you know what approximately the commands, modifiers, conditions and scope are. Now we will move to the focus tree modding and we will start copying it, but mainly from the vanilla files. Therefore you will see that it's much easier than it seems. I will be using the starter pack I showed you in the first video, so if you haven't checked that video yet, so make sure to check it and get the starter pack. It will make your modding life much easier. And now let's go mod some focuses. Just to make sure everything works for you, in the first video we have created our first mod. We have it enabled under our playset. For me it's called nothing. I have it enabled here and let's press play. Now in our mod file we will open our mod, go to the common and national focus. If you are using my starter pack, you will have this file here. Let's open it. You can see that there is a lot of things going on, but don't worry, a lot of it is just explanation I added to make your life easier. when you are modding, you can use basically these focuses without explanation, and it will be easier for you to orient in or navigate through it. But I will explain the basics of the focus tree modding with my nodes here. Also, it's important to say that when we have this symbol before anything, this line doesn't count, or what's after this doesn't count. So if I put it, for example, here, this counts, but this doesn't count. The focus tree begins here. You can see focus tree and it's opened. And the whole focus tree ends here. You can see here it's closed. Now, the things that are here are for the whole focus tree. We have ID of that whole focus tree. Every ID in the game must be unique. We will be modding for Sweden, so let's just change AFK for SWE, which is tag of Sweden. And let's put custom here, so this ID is unique from the vanilla one. Default tells us whether this focus tree is default and generic nations will use it. We will leave it on no. And this part tells us how likely is the country to use this focus tree. You can see that we have a country factor 0. So every country in the game will not use this focus tree because we have 0 here. However, we have a modifier here which adds 50 to the 0. So it will be 50 for country with this tag to use that focus tree. Currently it's AFK, which, as you can see up here in my notes, AFK stands for just reserve space for the tag of your nation. So as I said before, we will be modding for Sweden. So we have to put a Swedish tag here in order for Sweden to use that. Before I save it, just for the demonstration, I will start as Sweden. Let's go. And you will see that currently Sweden is using the generic focus tree. That's because I haven't saved it. Now when I do, we have tag Sweden, which means that Sweden has 50 points to use this custom focus tree. When I save it, you can see that the focus tree changes. If you want more nations to use this focus tree, you can just copy this modifier and put, for example, Finland here. That way, both of these nations will be using this focus tree. If you are, for example, modding like a focus tree to be shared among some nations. When we take a look on Finland, you can see that it also has that focus tree. I will just leave it for Sweden. And this last line, continuous focus position, is for the continuous focuses. Where will they be located? When we take a look, when we change, for example, this to 500 and save it, you will see that it moved up. For now, let's just put it down. That's basically all for the whole focus tree. Again, remember, this ID must be unique. We have SWE custom focus, default no, you usually leave it as no, and you just change the tag here for whatever country you want this focus tree to mod. Now let's move on to the individual focuses. You can see that we have 4 focuses here. These 2 are the explanatory focuses, these 2 are the exemplary focuses. When you are more experienced, you can just delete these 2 if you don't want my nodes there. But for the explanation, I will be using these ones first. Actually, let me use these ones because for you it might be easier to navigate through it. So, the focus, this is like the whole focus. It begins here can see focus, and it ends here. So what does the focus have in it? It has ID. Again, it has to be unique. Every ID in the game has to be unique. Then it has some icon. For now, I am just using GFX. This GFX is wrong. Again, then you can just more easily find what icon you are missing. Icon is of course what's showed here. Then the focus has positioning. Then that focus has some cost. This number means how many days will it take to complete that focus, but it's multiplied by 7. So if the cost is 10, you can see that it will take 70 days to complete this focus. You can also use decimal numbers, I think it's called, like 3.6 here, and then it will take 25 days to complete this focus. Then you have the available branch and the completion reward branch. Available is what conditions must be satisfied in order to for you to be able to select that focus. In the beginning we talked about commands and conditions, so you put triggers or conditions here in the available, and the completion reward is what you get. You put effects or commands into that branch. You can't put modifiers there. And the AI will do branch will just determine how likely AI is to select that focus. When we take a look up, you will see that everything is explained here. So when you are modding, you can use my notes. For example, here, completion reward, you can see what you get when you complete this focus, and I also noted what you should put here. Now, what I just explained is just the initial focus. Every other focus, which like follows the first one, is a bit different. That's because it also has prerequisite. That means which focus you have to complete before you can select this one. So you can see that focus number 2 can be only completed if you complete focus number 1. Then here in the positioning you have relative position ID. That means that this positioning you put here will be dependent on the focus that you list here. So you can see that this focus, focus number 1, is x2, which means it's 2 points to the right. But this second focus has x0. If we were to delete this and save it, you will see that the focus got moved to the left. That's because x is 0 and 0 line is here. This relative position ID is very useful. Always use it when you are modding focuses. It allows you to move like whole branches of the focus tree much easier. For example, as you can see, this focus number 2 is dependent on first one, and when I want to move this branch more to the right, I will just change one number and it will get moved, both of these focuses. If I didn't use the relative position ID, I would have to change numbers in every focus. And well, the rest of it is same. Now, what if I want to this focus, this AFK2 focus, be dependent on AFK1 and also AFK explain 1? Well, then I will just copy prerequisite, and we will have 2 prerequisites here in the focus. And I will have to put ID of the AFK Expl 1, which is this. Let's put it here. I will save it, and you will see that this focus is now dependent on this one and this one. So you have to complete both of these focuses before you can complete this focus. If I want this focus to be dependent only on either of one of these, like for example, you can complete this focus and you can complete this focus, or this one and then you can complete this one. You will just put both of these focuses in the same line. Save it, and you can see that it now has this different symbol between them, and you can complete only, you have to complete only one focus before you can complete this one. Just make sure that you put focus equal before every focus you want to put in the prerequisite. Now, what if I want to be these two focuses to be mutually exclusive, so you can complete only either this focus or this focus? For that, we can use mutually exclusive, which is listed here, and it's currently empty, as you can see. So if we use that, put it under our focus, AFK2, and put ID of the AFK Expl 2 here, which is this one. This focus will be mutually exclusive with this focus. However, you have to put mutually exclusive to both of these focuses, because as you can see, this focus is mutually exclusive with it, but this focus isn't. So we have to copy ID of this focus, put it into this one, put focus equals before it, save it, and you can see that it currently these two focuses are mutually exclusive. And just one last note, there can be more things listed in the focuses. If we take a look on the HoI4 wiki and search for national focus modding, you can see that there is a lot of things said here, and it looks complicated, but you can put like more things into your focus if you want to. But again, those are a bit advanced things, so I will skip them for now. Now, I have explained basically the basics of the focuses. Now we will create like small part of the focus tree. For that, I will just delete all of this, delete mutually exclusive this thing, save it. We have this part, we can also delete this, and let's create some, like, I don't know, industry part focus for Sweden. For that, I will also change AFK for Sweden, and let's do it. Also need to change prerequisite and this. Yep. Alright, so let's begin, for example, with Sweden. Industrial build-up. Let's save it. You can see that this focus jumped because this ID no longer exists. So let's just copy this and in this. Civilian factories focus. Let's move it one to the left. Then do military factories. Move it to the right, and then do, for example, extra research. You can see that you always have to change the ID, the prerequisite, and relative position. So I want the extra research to be under civilian factories, so I will just change it. It's too much to the left, so I will put 0 here. It's now under. And let's do, for example, extra ultra arms factories for fun. Save it. I want this to be under military factories. And we have it like this. Usually when you are creating focuses, I suggest you to outline the focuses like I did, you know, the whole focus tree. Then you can like move it around as you want to, and basically filling the focuses is usually like the last thing I do. Also, to use a few more things from what we have learned, I will also do extra research to be dependent on both of these. So I will put double the prerequisite, put the military factories ID here. You can see now that it's dependent on both of these focuses. It says requires all of the following. And let's also make these two focuses mutually exclusive. For that I will do focus equals put ID of this focus and ID of this focus here. And they are now mutually exclusive. Now, I talked about how modding is only 90% copy and pasting. When you are a total beginner, you won't be using the wiki at first. What you will be using are the vanilla files. So we will go to the HoI4 folder. I showed you where it is in the first video. Then we will go to the common. And because we are modding national focuses, we will go to the national focus. And let's go, for example, to the generic focus. You can see that we have both files opened here. And now we will be filling our focuses. So, industrial buildup. Let's give them some icons first. So let's say, what icons do we want these focuses to have? Well, let's take a look, for example, to Norway, and we will put this icon for our first focus. So because you are using debug mode, you can see the focus ID, which is industrial effort. So we will find it in our generic focus tree. Here it is, and we can see that it has some icon here. We will copy that and put it into our industrial buildup. And when we save it, you can see that the icon changed. I will now repeat the process. So to show you one more, civilian factories, let's take a look on the generic focus again. We will use this icon, so its ID is construction effort. I will find it here, or it's under it logically. Copy this, put it here, take a look, and it works. And as you can see, I just repeated the process and put more icons here. Now let's put some effects to it, some commands, so these focuses actually do something. For that, again, let's say you want to put civilian factories under this focus. So we will go to the generic focus again. As you can see, this focus adds civilian factory. So you will go to the civilian effort. Oops. It's construction effort, right? And you can see that in the completion reward, it has this line of code which begins here and ends here. I mean, begins here and ends here. Now, this looks pretty complicated for what it does. You know, it just adds one civilian factory. For now, let's just copy this line of code to our focus, which is civilian factories. Let's save it. Let's take a look on our focus, and it adds one civilian factory. I will now explain what all of this does. So, for now, let's just extract this part. Let's save it, and you will see that it still adds one civilian factory. Now, these things are commands. However, these commands can only be used for certain scope, because you are not targeting our whole country, you are targeting certain state to get those industrial complexes. If we were to put these commands, which just to show you, you can find those commands in the wiki here, and in the wiki is also nicely set to which scope you can use those commands, right? When we scroll up, you will see that these commands can have any scope, country scope, state scope, character scope, and other scopes. Scopes are these things we talked about earlier. They tell you about for what or for whom those effects will trigger. When we take a look on our focus again, you can see that these commands will trigger for random owned controlled state. And for that random owned control state, we will get one extra state shared building slot and one civilian complex or civilian factory. You can't just put these commands here like so. If you take a look here, you can see that the effects is still there, but it won't work. Just to demonstrate, I will use console command to autocomplete focus. Take a look that we have 16 factories. I will complete this focus and this focus, and we still have 16 factories because it doesn't work. So we have butchered our code. So just do the simple thing, just remove all of it, save it. You can see focus doesn't have any effect, and copy it again. And it works properly. Now, I have explained what this is. This is the scope, and these are the commands. But what is this part? This part is the limit or the condition or the available. You put conditions here, and this limit tells you what this scope must satisfy, what conditions must this scope satisfy in order for it to work. To make it easier, again, I will just delete this part, and we still have limit and we have some condition here. If we take a look, this still works, and this tells you this whole line of code, which adds one civilian factory and one extra building slot, tells us random owned controlled state which satisfied this limit, which is it has more than 0, so at least one free building slots, which means that you have some free building slots here. That state will get these effects or commands. This limit is helpful here because you won't get like these effects to some state that would be, for example, fully built. You still have places here, but some states might be fully built, and that effect of that focus would come in vain. Also, for example, for dockyards, it's really useful because you can put dockyards only on the coastal regions, and therefore you have to use this limit. But hey, as I said, if you are a beginner, don't even worry about it. Just copy what works, copy all of this, and put it here, and it works just fine. Now let's fill other focus. For example, this one, extra research. I wanted to add one extra research slot. So again, we will take a look on how the vanilla focus works, which is this one. It has ID extra tech slot. We will find it. And you can see that it's just one line of code. We will copy that and put it under our extra research. And it works. you can see that this doesn't have to have any scope, because what you put here, the scope is your country. It's listed here in the effects that what commands you can use for country scope. If we were to put our tag here, which is Sweden, which would be the basically substitute for our scope, you will see that it does the exact same thing, because we are Sweden, so it still works for us. If we were to change this for example, Germany, which is tag GER, you will see that this focus now adds 1 research slot to Germany. And well, that's basically all of it. Now you can just continue and fill all your other focuses. We want military factories here, so I will find arms factory, copy this line of code, military factories, copy it here, and we want military factories here as well. So just copy, change some numbers. Let's put some nuclear bonus as well for that focus. Let's save it. You can see it now also adds some research bonus. We want possibly some research bonus for this focus as well. So I don't remember how it's called. Industrial effort. Industrial effort. Completion reward. Let's copy that. Let's put it here. Let's change the numbers again. Use this 2. And well, we have completed our small focus tree. I moved quickly, you know, when doing this, just to show you how easy it is. Really, just when you are starting to mod, just copy code from the other focuses. And you know, you can copy some more complicated codes, for example, from the Soviet Union tree. I don't know, these are just national spirits, you know, this seems pretty more complicated. You know, modding, as I said, is just copy and pasting. For example, you want to create focus that gives you air experience or some air bases. You know, just search through the focuses and copy the code from there. Now, I should also explain what the available is for. As I already said, you put conditions there. Because we are copying from the manual files, let's find some condition. For example, these conditions are you have to have fascist or communist or non-aligned ruling party. I don't know what would fit. For example, let's do that you must have more factories than 50. So this focus is extra tech slot 2. Add research slot. No. It's extra tech slot 2 and available number factories more than 50. So we will just copy that, put it under our, for example, extra research. And when we take a look here, you will see that it works. Really, I could like continue forever with this, but I think you already get it. It's all about, you know, to understand the basics of the focuses, which I showed you. Then you will create like the structure of the focus tree, which we did earlier. And then you will just copy the code from the other files. You will do this for a few hours. You will start to understand it more deeply. Then you will start to copy the code from the wiki. And you know, after 1 month you will be professional. I will now explain 2 more things. How if and else works and how to create interesting focus trees. Let's start with if, else or if else. Alrighty, so if, else if, else. I will also explain or and we have already talked about limits. So let's go through it. If tells us that these commands, these effects will only happen if this condition which you put under limit is satisfied. If it isn't satisfied and you put else or else if after it, it will check the other two things. So when we take a look on this, alright, if limit has war support 50%, so if we have more than 50% war support, which we don't have, we will get these bonuses, or these commands will happen. When we take a look on the focus, you see that it currently doesn't do these things. That's because this condition isn't satisfied. So this if does nothing. If I was to change this 50% war support to just 5% war support, you will see that we have 15% war support, so this will happen. We get 50 political power, 10% stability and 10% war support. Let's leave it on 50% right now. And because now this condition won't be satisfied, it will now check the following, which is else if. Now we have again limit here, and these conditions must be satisfied in order to these effects to happen. You can see that one of our rules was what's opened must be closed. So this else if is opened here and closed here. This limit is opened here, closed here. And the conditions under limit are also, I am using or here. That means that only one of these conditions must be satisfied in order for these effects to happen. So because we have or here, we either have to have at least 25% war support, which we don't have, or, and because I'm using and here, we must have both more than 50% stability, which we have, but we don't have more than 100 political power, as you can see. Therefore, either of these conditions, basically this is one condition and this is second condition, because they count together when you have and there. If we were to remove the and, we will now basically have three conditions, and all we will need is one of them to be satisfied because we have or here. When we save it, you will see that this focus now gives you these effects because this condition that we have more than 50% stability is satisfied. Let's add the and back. You will see that when we save it, these conditions are no longer satisfied, so the focus moves down and you will get these. You will get minus stability, war support and political power. You don't have to always have like else here. If we delete it, you will see that this focus now does nothing because this condition isn't satisfied and then these conditions are not satisfied. You don't even have to have else if here, and the focus will do nothing again. If we change this condition to be satisfied, you will see that it now does. When we take this back, save it, remove else if, and we will have only if and else, you will see that this focus now gives you this. I hope that's clear. If it seems like hard or complicated for you, just try it. You will see that after a few minutes it will be super easy. I will also add these if, else if and else to my starter pack so you can see it like in the action. Let's take a look now on how to create interesting focus trees. To create interesting focuses, simply go to the Wikipedia, search, because we are working on Sweden, search Sweden World War II, Sweden during World War II. Then because we are creating like industry branch, we will go to the, for example, humanitarian effort, press freedom, war, foreign trade. And you will see that we have some sub-threats like Swedish iron mining, overseas trade, and you will just like read interesting things about Sweden. For example, you can see that there was some rationing of fuels and food in Sweden, so you can create focus for that. You can see that at the beginning of the war, agreements had been signed between Sweden, United Kingdom and Germany, so you can create focuses for that, maybe even mutually exclusive focuses. You can see that the trade eventually increased with Germany. 37% of Swedish exports were to Germany. You can see that during the Winter War, Swedes sent 8,000 volunteers to Finland, also a lot of rifles. Again, you can make focuses for that, create a lot of filler focuses. You know, not every focus has to be complicated, just focus that gives, you can create like, I don't know, 5 focuses that gives Finland something. Infantry equipment, volunteers, manpower, even like aircrafts, maybe some industrial help. Just search for interesting things on the Wikipedia. That is what concerns ideas. Now for the individual like focuses, what I like to do, this is my UMC German focus tree, I like to make the template of the focus tree interesting. So you can see we have some interesting like lines here. It of course has to make sense, but having the focus to look interesting is like much more appeasing to the eye and to the gameplay in my opinion. So you know you have ton of options what to do first. For example, this is branch for Greece. If you complete this focus, you can choose whether to do this or this or this. It's like nicely positioned. You get the idea. I also distinguish between like complicated focuses. For example, Trautmann meditation is focus which is supposed to make peace between China and Japan, and it's pretty complicated. And you know, it's good to create those focuses because those focuses make the mod like interesting, but it's also important to create filler focuses. For example, this one. This just improves the state of Qingdao. Also, never use names for the focuses like industrial expansion or something. Try to search for more interesting names. For example, this focus gives you infrastructure, but it isn't called like add infrastructure or infrastructural expansion. It's called Reichsautobahn, you know, because it's the name for it. Just like this simple name change improves the overall look of the focus tree, and again it makes it much more interesting. Again, for example, you have research bonuses for mechanized, and you can see that it's called Sander or some German word. I can't say it, but again you get the idea. And that will be all for the focus tree modding. I hope this video isn't 30 minutes long, because it shouldn't been. Really, just remember, it's all about copy pasting. You will try it 10 times, you will get to know the code, and it will be basically easy for you. I tried to be extra slow when explaining things, because this is for the total beginners, and you might not like understand some things right now, but trust me, just get to it, mod few things, and you will start to understand them. And I promise you that next videos, when we take a look on the ideas on national spirits, will be already much shorter, because I have explained a lot of things here, like the if, and, or, conditions, commands. In the next video we will talk only about modifiers and national spirits, and those are pretty easy. So yeah, that will be all. I will see you in the next video, And if you want to, you can join UMC Discord, you can support me on Patreon, and of course subscribe and things like that. Thank you and see ya!